of the 4th century BC or later than the beginning of the Christian era. This general pattern will be subject to perhaps a re-estimation of 40 or 50 years, but I think not more than that. Actually, the Corpus Hermeticum consists of 42 books. At least it is so traditionally stated. Against this is the rather bizarre background in which it is affirmed that the writings of Hermes originally included 10,000 volumes. This, I think, again, must cause us to pause and assume that probably a symbolic meaning is intended. Here we have something to suggest Hermes as universal mind, the writer of all books. Even on this point, however, we must have a cautious attitude, because we know, in listing the books of Plotinus, who came in a little later in North Africa, that the term book was not used then just as we use it today. It was used with a bit of the Soroyan quality, which was not so well known to antiquity, because some of the books of Plotinus do not contain over 1,000 words. They're comparatively short tracts, but they are still called books. Thus, we are not sure how much actual writing might be involved in the so-called mythological library of the size mentioned. The next point is that the number 42, to refer to the so-called authentic works, is a highly significant number. It is the number of the Egyptian assessors of the dead, the jury that try the soul in the field of Amentet. It is also the number of the provinces of Egypt. There were 42 nomes, or provinces, and that is why there were 42 assessors, one of the jurors being selected from each of the provinces or nomes and their celestial correspondences in the universe. Thus the number 42 suggests high symbolism of some kind, and also reminds us that the phrenologists of the 19th century, for some reason quite unknown, decided that there were 42 faculties of the human brain. Again, a number appearing which seems to exhaust certain intellectual processes and reflexes within the human intellectual equipment. So we have to be a little cautious on this point, sensing the possibility that we are dealing with an allegory or a figurative concept of some kind, possibly even Qabbalistic. The next point in connection with it, of course, is that up to the present time, very few of the so-called original works of Hermes have been known. We will in a later discussion go into these books, but for our orientation problem, we might say that up to now 42 works are not known. The principal work that is known today is the Pyamandres, or the Shepherd of Men. Outside of that, there are other short fragments, but the Corpus Hermeticum contains nothing resembling 42 books. Early writers came to the conclusion that it never did. But now we must also pause for a moment and mention the Qabbalistian find at Luxor in Egypt in 1946, when the discovery of a Gnostic library about 30 miles from Luxor also included within this collection of books several Hermetic writings not previously known to exist. This opens the door for the speculation that it is possible that 42 works did exist at one time, that there was a reason for this selection, that it was not entirely arbitrary, or if it was arbitrary, it was a division set up within a group of writing in order to indicate some important sequence or symbolism involved in the work itself. Today, the term Hermetic is perhaps more loosely used than any other in the field of philosophy. We may say that after about the 2nd or 3rd century A.D., this term became gradually the synonym of secret. Anything that was completely sealed, completely hidden, completely locked, was regarded as hermetically contained in some way, and we still use the term to signify a sealed vessel or retort. Actually, as time went on, the term was used in connection with practically every system of unorthodox thinking that developed in the Mediterranean and European theaters from the 3rd century to the 17th. Now that is a long period of time. The word was thrown around and variously applied and misapplied for nearly 1400 years. During this time, it certainly wandered far afield. A very large literature involving it arose upon alchemical speculation. It even became involved in medicine and in astronomy and in mathematical formulas of one kind or another. It came in general to represent practically the whole body of a secret or profound learning, particularly such learning as related to causes or to principles not immediately otherwise obvious or available. From this we must come to the conclusion that today it is exceedingly difficult to differentiate between the layers and overlayers of speculation which have developed around this theme. If we study the period most involved in the rise of Hermetic philosophy, say the period from the 3rd century B.C. down through and into the 1st century A.D., this period certainly stands out as a period of extraordinary mental activity. It also stands out as the beginning of the rise of sectarianism as it had never previously been known. And we must pause for a moment to analyze this because I think it is important to us. Our ancient forebears in the North Africa Mediterranean theater usually had their own local religions. They had the religions of their provinces and of their cities and communities. Usually the city or community faith was based upon that of the larger geographical area involved. When a nation conquered another nation, it conquered the gods along with mortals and brought its own religion which superseded that of the people that had been conquered. Thus there was very little actual change of faiths due to sectarianism. People were not inclined to say, I prefer to worship this way and you can worship that way if it pleases you. You worshipped according to the land in which you lived. And if anything happened and your land changed proprietors, then it was assumed that if your gods were not strong enough to preserve the country that they governed, then it was a good idea to change your gods and join up with the conquerors, and at least be on the right side of the situation. And as changes in the religions of peoples were very slow, and most reformations were of slight general importance, I think we can say that up to the beginning of this critical period, there was almost no concept of what the Shakespearean plays refer to as a misbeliever, an individual with a wrong religion. The only way you had a wrong religion was to be in the wrong place, or to fail to change when some other religion took over your country. There were not minority faiths and majority faiths, such as we know today. nor were there the 500 jarring sects referred to by Omar.